All right, all right, all right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm James Oliver Jr., co-founder and CEO of Kabila. As you saw, we're a co-founder matching app, global community of badass founders, and we got a few other things up our sleeves that we can't talk about yet. But look, we do our Kabila conversations. Why? To help you level up, be better founders, better humans. And I'm really excited about the conversation we're having today with my new friend, Brett Green, who's just a really good human. I was talking with Brett a couple months ago, and he told me that he coaches founders who have ADHD. I have undiagnosed ADHD. My daughter, my twin daughter Zoe, who's 10, has diagnosed ADHD, and I was really fascinated to have Brett come in and have this conversation about how you can thrive as a founder with ADHD. So I'm going to welcome my buddy Brett to the screen. What's going on, Brett Green? How are you?
I'm awesome, James. Thank you for the opportunity. This is great. And just for some context, founder wise, yeah, I have a master's degree in psychology, and I do ADHD coaching. But I've been mentoring, coaching, and advising startups since 2006 when TechStars first launched in Boulder, and yeah, so that was just luck. Just happened to be when startups became a thing, and
Yeah.
Brad Feld and Foundry Group just kind of lit the community up. So
Yeah. Brad's a good
so I
friend.
had that perspective along with the ADHD stuff, and not surprisingly now realize a large percentage of us are neurodivergent. So
Yeah. So Brad's a
we
good
tend to be
friend.
the smart, fun, creative people.
Let me read your bio here if you don't mind. So Brett is the founder of Epsilon Coaching, and he coaches technologists and professionals with ADHD to overcome neurodiverse challenges and powerfully create the lives they really want with their agile brains. Brett also runs the New Tech Northwest, a community of 60,000 plus technologists, which is amazing. Welcome, buddy. How are you?
I'm awesome. It's great to be here, James, and I love having these conversations and hopefully
Yes.
share some things that are really helpful
All
for
right. So we
your
got a bunch of
audience.
people checking in already. Let us know where you're coming in from. Hello there, Jacqueline. Accounted for it. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. And Peter, I think Peter's a friend of yours. I think I saw him on your posting. He was coming. Great to be here. Thanks for doing this, James and Brett. Thanks for showing up, Peter. We appreciate you, man. So look, I just want to get right into this. First of all, I do have a question for you. Like, what inspired you to work with founders with ADHD?
I just I have a kind of a unique combination because I do have my background's in psychology, and I've been around the tech industry, kind of as a psychology guy in the tech community for 20 years, and I always thought I had ADHD, like you mentioned, undiagnosed. There's more undiagnosed folks with ADHD than actually have them. Fastest growing group right now are adult women. Second are adult men. A lot of times it's when they take their kids in to get diagnosed, and other times their friend mentions it, or they look at the list of things and they're like, wait, this
Right.
is me.
This is
So
me. 100%.
yeah, so I'm like, a lot of us were, was adults getting diagnosed. About 20 years ago, I had a nephew on Ritalin, and his mom said, hey, you might want to try this, because she was a psychologist. I think she saw something. And I took a Ritalin on a Sunday, and I got more work done on that 4 hours
Oh,
on
wow.
Sunday than I got done during a work. I was like, and the first thing was, people's brains work this way, which I've talked to over 200 professionals in tech with ADHD now, and it's really common. As soon as like the least bit of medication, it's like it's a brain experience you've never had in your entire life. And it's bizarre thinking that people have quiet brains that don't have
Yeah,
three
that
to
is
five
quiet, bro. It's
conversations on,
just,
and they're
I
not
can't.
always,
Yeah.
trying to build and create.
100%. So folks, if you're out there, some folks coming in, Timothy's coming in from Memphis. We got an ATL user, buddy Veronica coming in from ATL. What's up, Veronica? And Jacqueline says her whole life undiagnosed. Folks, if you listen to this, can you please share this on whatever social media platform you're watching this on? Share it out. Invite your friends to join us, please. It's an important conversation, and I'm super excited to have it. So thanks for sharing that, Brett. I totally agree with you. Okay, so tip number one, like, what is your first tip for an ADHD founder to thrive with ADHD?
It's a founder, but it's really anyone with ADHD is learn how to educate first yourself, but then your neurotypical friends, family, team members, and investors on how your neurodivergent brain works, and that it's an operating system, and it's just a different operating system rather than thinking of it as a disability that needs accommodations. And that's how neurodivergence is perceived, because we haven't been schooled. And as a society, we don't have an education. When you see ADHD, people think third grade white boy running in circles in a classroom. And if you say ADD, they think squirrel, and that's all they got. And it's not their fault, but unfortunately, it's up to us to have to use language and understand how to explain it. I'm actually working on a book on this now, because I don't see a simple way. And when I do coaching, within I can have a 30-minute conversation with somebody and give them tools, some we'll talk about today, that give you the language to be able to explain this to people so they understand. Because if you have ADHD and you say, oh, in the afternoon, I have brain fog and I'm really tired, other people go, oh yeah, me too. What they don't understand is that comes from executive function in our brain. And statistically, we wake up with 20% versus the 100% of a neurotypical person. So if you picture that,
can you say that again? We wake up with 20%.
Yeah, this is one of the things that's great to be able to explain this to somebody, to help them understand that when you say I'm tired, it isn't the same as when they're tired. The chemistry of ADHD is low executive function, low working memory, low dopamine, low serotonin. And executive function.
So that explains why I can't ever remember squat.
Exactly.
My memory is terrible.
Well, short term.
Yeah,
right?
Short-term memory is horrible.
What you don't remember is that you told your partner 2 hours ago you were going to do something, and then tomorrow at 3 you're going to go.
Well, that's why I write it down. So we got some comments here.
And that's a system. And that's the other thing you have to do is create systems like that.
So we got some comments popping. Keep the comments coming. Folks, if you have some questions, drop them in, and we'll do our best to get your questions. Peter talking about his brain finally resting after taking Adderall. I've never done that before. ADHD founder here, ATL. What's up, Cesar? It's one of my, so we work out of Atlanta Tech Village here in Atlanta. Cesar's there. Jacqueline's laughing at us. And hello from Sacramento. All right, what's going on? So, all right, so that's interesting. So that first tip to summarize that first tip was, you said, to educate people. Is that what you said it was?
It's to learn how to educate the people around you, because most of our suffering comes from a lack of good communication. So we have anxiety. We frustrate people when we don't mean to. Arguments happen, and we just kind of take it and get used to multiple times a day being misunderstood, and having people label us lazy for not doing things that we don't have the parts in our brain to do, like writing reports and creating good slide decks, or negative because we look for problems in our brain. We love problems and solving them. And so we're at work going oh, this could be better. This could be better. And everybody else who doesn't think that way, they're why are they always complaining about the stuff that doesn't work? And they don't understand that our brains are wired to see it. We can't help it. And we're excited to make it better. And we don't understand why their brains don't work that way, but we don't think of it as we have two different operating systems. And it's not good or bad. It's just like Android and iOS. Some things are the same, some things are different. But the culture tells us that we're all supposed to be neurotypical, and that we're supposed to adapt to these things, but we don't have that in our brain to do. We don't have the parts in our brain. So having low executive function means that if you wake up with, let's say, 2 gallons of fuel in your brain of executive function, which is organizing, planning, prioritizing, making decisions, every time you do those things, your fuel goes down, you're out by 11 a.m., maybe 12. Neurotypical person has 10 gallons at in the afternoon, they're down to 4, and they go, oh, I got brain fog and I'm tired. And they don't get you were out at 11 and you started with 2, and they went from 10 to 4. And when you say I'm tired and I can't think, they're like, oh yeah, me too. And so they don't understand that there's a difference. But as soon as you explain it in a way they can understand, now your relationships totally change and your communication totally changes. And all those arguments and things, they never go away, but there's a different context. So let me just say one quick thing, and I'll wrap up so we can make it more conversation. But just for context, if 2 people go to lunch and one of them orders mayonnaise with their fries, and the other person's American, and they go, that's weird. You're supposed to have ketchup with your fries. Everybody knows that. And the other person goes, oh, I'm Canadian, and this is what we do in Canada. Immediately, the American drops the weirdness, because they have that context of oh, foreign culture, they do stuff different. And that's what we kind of have to create with neurotypical folks is, oh, it's a different culture in our brain. It's not bad. It's not wrong. And while we can't write reports like you can't innovate products the way we can. And so they're just different ways.
Man, I'm listening to you talk, folks. If this is resonating with you out there, can you just like drop a comment? Let me know if this sounds like you. And like, I get so much work done in the morning. Yo, I am crushing it. I can wake up early and just like go super hard in the paint till like 10 a.m. And I'll do more before 10, 11 a.m. Most people will do all day. So that's what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you create systems like I forgot what you mentioned earlier. That was a system. That's kind of one of the main things we have for support is
Or I
what
write
I
it
call
down. If I don't put it on my calendar or it's
yeah,
not going to happen because I don't remember to do it.
right. And you have to find the anchors that work for you. Some people it's digital, some people it's audio, some people it's a mix. But you got to realize the things that anything you're struggling with mentally, if you have ADHD, is going to go back to low executive function, low working memory. And if you remember that, first off, number one rule, give yourself grace and loving kindness. Because
Man, listen, that
there's
applies
nothing
like
wrong with you. It's not your personality. You're not a bad person. You're a person with a certain kind of brain chemistry. And that's why when people read the list of the things and they go, what, it's not just me. And we just think like, oh, well, everything's on a spectrum and some people are better and worse, which is true. But you need that knowledge of it's different brain chemistry. It's not that we choose to forget these things.
yeah.
And that's why we look like a jerk to people. Like when you were talking about the lower working memory part, if somebody asks you to do something and you're like, oh yeah, I'll get that done the next hour. And then 2 days go by and they're like, what is it like? Are you lazy? Are you passive aggressive? Are you just lying to me? And in their world, that makes sense because in their brain, you would have thought about that over and over and gone, no, don't want to do it. What they don't understand is it never came on awareness field. Like we don't even know it happened to say
100%.
yes or no. And so once they understand, like, oh, you're not dissing me on purpose, it literally did not occur for you. But then when we say, oh, I don't think of that, they don't ever have that experience. So they're like, why are you lying to me again? And they honestly think we're lying and we're going crazy in our minds because we were working our butts off to not forget that thing.
Right.
And the exact thing we didn't want to blow up is the spilled milk we got to go clean up right now.
Well, that's why I put it on my calendar. So we have we got some comments here. This is transformative language gems. Thank you, Jacqueline. Peter, definitely relatable. Crash by 10. You got to move around and get some energy back. Like sometimes in the middle of the day, I'll go for a quick bike ride. So I feel that. And this is why I wake up at 5 a.m. Well, I don't know. Yo, like real talk, like there was a period, like, I mean, I was waking up at 5 a.m. for no reason whatsoever. Can understand it. So we got
because it was quiet and you could get stuff done. And the bike ride is a great example of when you're gonna have low dopamine, like after 12. You're gonna have low executive function, and figuring out what gives you dopamine is going to help you out. So it can be a bike ride, it could be petting your dog, it could be calling your friend, it could be playing a video game for half an hour. And when you do that stuff in the middle of the workday, you're not being lazy. You're actually like giving yourself that refresh and that reboot that you need. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there for 2 hours and nothing good's going to happen anyway.
Listen,
so if you go
100%.
take that a half hour to help yourself out, then you're never going to be, back to that 20% of executive function, but it'll give you a little bit. And this is also a reason why we get in lots of arguments later in the day, because if you think of low executive function, a way for a person to understand it who's neurotypical is imagine if every day you only got 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And that's what our executive function is like when we wake up. So then by 11, you think of how tired you would be. So that's why sleep's really important for everybody, but especially for us. Because if we don't have enough hours of sleep on top of the low dopamine, game out, over. It's like that day is shot. Just go lay on a beach for the day.
No, that's a good point, because I had a conversation with a pediatrician who specializes in children with ADHD, Dr. Hokehe Echo. She's part of my Parentpreneur Foundation community. And she was talking about just that, like the importance of sleep for us. And she also talked about the connection of the gut and the gut health and the brain. So, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
No,
So
it's not. No, it's all just stuff to
do you
help.
have?
This
So
is
this
great.
it said somebody said this is good. Which the jingle thing could actually be really distraction. What's the jingle? I don't know what that is. What is that? So what's your second tip? Because we're running out of time already. We're at 2:16. We have 14 minutes to go here.
Sure. Educate yourself on how to create anchors and systems and fewer steps. So we kind of talked about systems already. Easy system is leaving your keys by the door. That's, an obvious thing, or putting something on a calendar. For anchors, a key phrase that I've developed that's helped a lot of my clients is when you talk to you make an anchor. One version of an anchor is you creating an agreement with yourself. When you see the stuff that we would call like spilled milk a lot, the things that you see are causing frustration or arguments with other people that kind of circle back around. Like, let's say interrupting is one that a lot of us do. So
me?
it could
never.
Yeah. So an anchor for that could be like, okay, when I interrupt when I do blank, I will blank. And so if you just have in your head, when I interrupt someone, I'll, try to just stop talking immediately, or whatever the thing is. The thing is, you don't have to actually do that. But by having that anchor of, okay, this is a thing that I'm going to do when that happens, that puts you in, and we live in now and not now, right? So it's always just the present moment. So in that moment, your brain, because you've taught it like, okay, when interrupting happens, I'm going to hitch it to this. I need to think about this. That gives you an anchor to go, yes or no, I'm going to do that. And if you say, no, I don't want to do that, your brain, the way it's just wired, will come up with one or two examples and you go, oh, I'll do this instead. But if you don't have that anchor, when you go to interrupt somebody, you're just going to go everywhere. And if they like finally shut you down, your brain, you're going to jump up into that sea in your brain and go on a goose chase, going like, oh, I could do that. I could do that. Oh, but that would be better. And oh, what about those three things tied to that? And that's what we just naturally do. So if you have an anchor, that keeps you from just flying off. And that's also a way for you to make agreements with your loved ones and your coworkers and people. If saying like, hey, I have ADHD, this is what it means. It means low executive function, low working memory, low dopamine. I know you don't know what that stuff means. Most likely what it means is that I have a hard time organizing, planning, prioritizing. I do things like interrupting and, going on a tangent when I don't mean to. And I want you to know that I'd like to not do that as much. There's no magic wand. There's no light switch. It's not going to stop, but I'm doing my best to do it less. And if you understand that this is brain chemistry and I just can't change it, I'm doing the best I can and I can work on some habits, but it's going to happen. So when it happens, I give you permission to put your finger up and say, hey, you're interrupting, or please don't do that, or whatever we agree on. I'm letting you know that I care about our relationship and I'm giving you permission to do that. I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to appreciate it. And I need you to understand that the train's already out of the station. And so I still might have to wrap that thing up before I can shut my damn mouth, because I literally don't have brain chemistry control on that thing. But once you have that conversation, now you're in a whole different relationship with people. And now they understand the context of what's going on in your brain, because we're all walking around in our own movie anyway. But if they never have these experiences, it's totally a foreign concept to them. They don't understand at all what it's like to not have the thing show up in your brain that you promised to do and remember. They're like, oh yeah, we all. And if you just say, oh, I have to write things down, like, oh yeah, we all do. Or you say, I don't really like writing reports. So like, yeah, nobody likes writing reports. Yeah. That's different than we don't have the parts in our brain. You're not going to ask a 10-year-old to write an essay for a college student.
I mean, bro, like,
because the 10-year-old can't do it.
This is why I don't like to read. I listen to audiobooks. Mm-hmm. Reading for me is too hard because I keep reading the same sentence over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And Peter's comment here about, race car brains with bicycle brakes, that's a classic thing they say about ADHD. And going back to like, give yourself grace and loving kindness, these things that we're talking about, including creating systems and anchors and medication and, eating good food, lower sugar and alcohol, all of these things help us, in my brain, give us motorcycle brakes. So we go from bicycle brakes to motorcycle brakes. We're never going to have Hyundai brakes. We're never going to have Porsche brakes. And we're never going to have brains that are going to slow down to be in a Honda. But these things we're talking about at least can help us pause a little bit to catch some things before they come out of our mouth, to catch some actions before something happens and something blows up, people around us that we don't want to be frustrating, and we don't want to feel like a 10-year-old every day, but somehow it doesn't matter how old you are, something happens at least once a day where you're like, and you want it to be different, but you don't have control over it. And it's brain chemistry. So, love yourself and understand that part of it. That's really the main thing.
I love that. So get your questions in here, folks. Again, please share this with your friends on social media. I see Jacqueline's tagging Hassan Muhammad. Hopefully he got that tag and he's listening. Please keep the questions coming. We have 9 more minutes here with Brett. So this is fascinating, Brett. So the first one was help people understand or talk about or frame it, what the problem is. Second one is to provide anchors and tools.
Anchor systems and fewer systems.
Right.
Most things that frustrate you, if you can break it down to fewer steps, you're going to have a higher chance of success and lower chance of getting frustrated. So for the classic example is Steve Jobs, wearing the same clothes every day. They were like, oh, it's just because they didn't say it was neurodivergence, but in hindsight, it totally is. Yeah, the guy wore the same shirt and pants there. Yeah, because he knew he had low executive function. Whether he knew that specifically or not, he had an awareness that this is what happens. Yeah. And he's like, I don't want to waste that brain power on that thing every day. And so he simplified the steps. So you can just, if something frustrates you, stop for a minute, pause, and think, okay, well, how do I put that into fewer steps? Or the stuff that is executive function and working memory, delegate it. You can go on Upwork and find ADHD virtual assistant, and you can pay them by the hour. You might only use them 1 hour a week, but the stuff that you're not good at, even writing reports, unless it's something that's, like your company's private information, have somebody else talk it to somebody who can write it for you, or find a partner in your company that likes doing this stuff, and they'll help you out with it.
I just sent an investor update this morning, and I just dread it not because I don't like sending investor updates, but because I'm like, going over it over and over and over and over again. You do that and it's still a misspelled word somewhere, and it's like, well, damn. So the 3 tips again, the first one was you got to teach people, educate people, give them language to understand what's going on. The second one was to create some frameworks, some systems and tools for yourself to make things easier. That's from Jamila. Hey, Jamila. And the third tip is what?
Create systems in your company that support neurodivergent needs. So when you understand, the good news about it is it's defined. It's low working memory. It's low executive function. You know what those things are. So if somebody says, hey, I'm neurodivergent, it's not just ADHD, it's dyslexia, depression, anxiety, autism, multiple other things that I can't even pronounce that all work similarly with our brains. If we just did stuff like have your employees all do Strength Finder. And so what's good for neurodivergent people is good for everybody. Just like what's good for any marginalized group is actually what's good for humans. So it's not, when you put a ramp up, it doesn't just help the people with wheelchairs. It helps the people carrying boxes and the janitor who has to clean up at night. Right. So the same thing with this. If you have systems in your company, like we were just talking about, if somebody says, hey, I'm neurodivergent, I'm not good at reports, find people in the company who are they love organization. They love planning. They're awesome at that. They like doing that. Partner them up and let somebody have someone they can talk it to, because we create through conversation more than sitting by ourselves and just writing something out. God, it's so true. So all you do is make us say, oh, hey, this is amazing. So one of my clients is the other thing is we're crazy smart. And so when we can't do things like remember where the cup goes in the cupboard, they totally think we're lying, because they're like, no, I know you're smart. Like, it doesn't make sense. You can't remember how to fold a towel the way I wanted you to do it. So anyway, this client I had, I'm sorry, ADHD, I'm jumping around.
It's all good. We all
she
here for
created,
it.
So she's a co-founder and was hiring some neurodivergent people on purpose. And she created some systems. And this is one of the greatest, easiest things I ever heard of for everybody is create a policy of bad brain days at your company. And it's not just for neurodivergent, it's for anybody. It could be that, you know, somebody's dog died the day before and they're just like, no, they're not with it that day. And you just have this agreement in the company that if anybody's having a bad brain day, they're just not with it. They're just kind of in a funk. When you like ask them a question or need help with whatever, somebody can just say, hey, I'm having a bad brain day. And you're like, oh, okay. All right, we'll circle back on this. And you just give people a pass. And you let them have their space to work on what they need
all
to
day.
And do their way. Yeah.
Really?
But it's not, the thing is, it doesn't mean they sit around and do nothing. What it means is you're like, hey, I need your help on this report. And they're gonna not do it well that day anyway. It doesn't mean they go sit in the corner all day.
What if I need the report done for an investor or somebody like that by the end of the day? Like, I still need to get that help, right?
Well, ideally, you planned earlier so they knew it was coming, and you're not dropping on them at the last minute. Right. Because one of my favorite phrases is a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But
before.
We know it happens. You know what happens. And yeah, I mean, there's sometimes it's going to happen, but there's also people who just do that. So the bad brain day doesn't mean they have a pass all day to sit around and do nothing. What it means is that when you need to go into something that's going to require executive function, you're saying, okay, and circle back like that. If you're like, hey, I need this thing by tomorrow, it's like, hey, go take a half an hour.
Yeah, go for a walk.
What you need to do, and then why don't we talk in an hour? And so you can get yourself in the right headspace.
I love that. That's so grace for others too, right?
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's anybody, and you don't have to know the reason. All they have to say is like, yeah, I'm having a bad brain day.
That's so good.
And you're like, okay, well, when I need this by tomorrow, so we do have to do it today. What's a good time today? Right. So then you're collaborating and co-creating that stuff.
That's so good. So how can people reach you? So you're at epsiloncoaching.com. They can reach you there.
Yeah, epsiloncoaching.com and newtechnorthwest.com.
Oh,
that's because Elon Musk bought it.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah,
is it X? Is it Twitter? I don't even know.
No, well, the day he bought it, I took a screenshot of my 130,000 followers. I took a screenshot of Barack Obama following me, and I wiped everything out because I knew it was Elon Musk and a bunch of Saudis who are right-wing fascists, and I'm like, I don't need to have my information here anymore because these are not people I trust or want to do.
That's something an ADHD person would do. I got 130,000 followers, a screenshot. I'm out. I don't care.
Yeah.
Deuces.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you want people to email you or no?
Yeah, email is actually the easiest way. And LinkedIn, just LinkedIn
I can put your email address up here. Is that okay?
Yeah. And LinkedIn.com/in/Brett Green.
Yeah. So Brett at NewTech.
Very happy to help people out.
So so this is great. So this was so straightforward and helpful. Thanks, guys. Of course, Jacqueline. I assume this is still Jamila.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you for being here and for being so engaged.
Yeah, Peter said it's an incredible conversation. Listen to. Thank you, guys. Lots of good nuggets. Feel free to connect. But yeah, if you're looking for a coach to help you as a founder with ADHD, I mean that's so Brett's jam.
One other thing, yeah, if you go to newtechnorthwest.com, we do twice a month. We do 1 hour ADHD virtual meetups on a specific topic. So people can meet other folks with ADHD because I've talked to over 200 people in the last year, and the conversations always ended with, wow, this is amazing. This is so helpful. I have no one to talk to. And so this way somebody can come once. There's people who come often and they made friends, but this way you can find other people who are professionals with ADHD that you're kind of on the same wavelength and the same vibe. So you can have some support. Maybe you just want to come because it's imposter syndrome, or maybe you want to come because, the topic is something like that, or just because you want to make friends and have people to talk to. So that's why we do it. So if you go to newtechnorthwest.com, you'll see we every time the events get listed for each month. And if you get on our newsletter there, you'll see our weekly newsletter to see when things are coming up. If you want to hop on those, and we can talk like this for an hour. And it's a topic, but then if people have specific things and we dive into it, and it's a safe place that's confidential, where you're with people who get where you're going and you hear their stories and you're like, oh, it's not just me, which is really the main purpose of it.
All right, bro. If you
Sorry
can
we
hang,
ran over, but I want
no,
to.
that's all good. If you can hang for 1 second, I'm just gonna run this trailer and roll out here in a second. Thanks everybody for listening. I'm gonna roll this trailer. Just hang on a second, Brett, if you can. All right.
Sure.
See everybody next time. Oh,
All
by
right.
the way,
Thank you,
oh yeah,
everybody.
we'll see you next time. Bye.